on emotions, truth, and the stories we tell ourselves. I've been thinking a lot lately about a series NPR's Invisibilia did on emotions, specifically about a psychologist named Lisa Feldman Barrett, whose research quietly dismantled something I had taken as fact. We think emotions happen to us. A thief kicks in your door and fear floods your chest. Your baby smiles and your whole body opens. The sequence feels obvious. Something happens out there and you respond in here. Cause, then effect. But it turns out that's not actually how emotions work. The brain doesn't wait for all the information before it reacts. It makes a prediction about what's going to happen and starts preparing your body to respond to that guess. The emotion doesn't follow the event. It's built from the accumulated weight of everything you've already experienced, everything you've already survived, everything you've been taught to expect. The feelings come first, the explanation comes after. And we are almost always convinced the explanation is true. I've learned this the hard way. When I was going through my divorce, my nervous system was not my own. Childhood wounds around abandonment, the kind that goes so deep you forget they're wounds and start thinking they're just you, surfaced with a force I wasn't prepared for. And I did what most people do when they're that activated. I looked around for something to blame. When a feeling surges through your body and your system can't locate its source, you scan the room. You find something, a tone of voice, a look, a silence that stretched too long, and you attach the feeling to it. You tell yourself a story, and the story feels like seeing clearly. It feels like the most obvious truth in the world. It wasn't truth. It was a very old wound wearing the costume of the present moment. The grief was real, the terror was real, but what I was constructing around those feelings, the meaning I was making, the causes I was assigning, was often coming from decades ago. I was feeling childhood things and laying them over my life like a transparency, convinced I was looking at what was actually there. I've watched the same thing happen between people I love. Two people move through the same experience and come away with entirely different emotional truths, both completely certain they are seeing clearly. One is flooded with feeling, one is operating from logic. Neither is lying, both are constructing. And the gap between their two realities is not a failure of communication. It is just what humans do. We each live inside our own rendering of events, shaped by everything that came before this moment. Emotional truth and factual truth are not always the same thing, and the space between them is where most human heartbreak lives. Understanding this has made me more patient, not because I don't have a perspective, but because I know that my perspective is also, to some degree, a construction. The question I try to stay with now is this signal or is this echo? Is this my nervous system speaking from the present, or is it replaying something old? The healing didn't happen by getting better at analyzing my feelings. It happened by learning to slow down the space between the feeling and the story. Meditation, somatic work, the long, unglamorous practice of sitting with the sensation long enough to ask, is this now or is this old? Learning to feel the tightness of my chest without immediately reaching for a cause in the room. The more I practiced, the more space opened up. Not distance from my emotions, space inside them. Room to feel the wave moving through me without being erased by it. Each stimulus that once would have destabilized me, I can now meet with a kind of subtle internal movement, like riding the swell rather than being swallowed by it. But here's the part that I keep turning over, the part that genuinely excites me. If we are the constructors of the difficult emotions, the fear, the grief, the dread, then what about the ones we call beautiful? What about love? We feel love and we immediately attribute it to the person, to the gesture, to the specific way someone showed up or remembered the small thing. And those things matter. But what if the love was already ours? What if we didn't receive it? What if we made it? I have a dream I've been living inside, a vision of a place, a life, a romance that I threw myself into completely, full of enthusiasm, full of devotion, full of creative energy directed at something that felt electric and alive. I'll be talking about it in detail in next week's podcast episode, but what I want to say here is this. When I became clear that it isn't my path right now, something interesting happened. The feelings didn't go anywhere. I can still access everything I felt inside that dream. The warmth of it, the aliveness of it, it's all still here because it was always mine. I generated it. The dream was the direction I pointed it, not the source of it. What has changed is that the actions I take to maintain a foot in that world now feel quiet, almost hollow. Not because something is wrong, but because my energy, that generative creative force, has already begun moving somewhere else, toward people and places and possibilities that feel full of vibration, full of life. And I understand more and more that that feeling is also something I am making. I am not receiving a good life. I am authoring one. I know that this can read as cold to people on the outside. When I am in something, I am in it, present, devoted, fully directed. When I know it is complete, I don't linger in the in-between. I don't perform ambivalence I don't feel. I turn toward what's next with the same energy I brought to what was. I used to wonder if something was wrong with me. Now I think the opposite. The capacity to love something fully and release it cleanly, without drama, without erosion, isn't detachment. It's a form of respect for the thing itself and for the energy it takes to do anything with your whole heart. The people who find this threatening are, I think, the ones who need you to keep circling back, who interpret your stillness as evidence that you never really felt anything. But that's their construction, not mine. Perception is reality. I believe this completely. But perception is also constructed, assembled from pattern and memory, from old wounds and old longings, from predictions our nervous system makes before our conscious mind catches up. We play a much greater role in our emotional lives than we ever thought. This doesn't make emotion untrustworthy. My intuition, the deep somatic know I've written about before, that is real signal. The difference between intuition and projection isn't that one is emotional and one isn't. It's that one comes from a regulated body, speaking in the present tense, and one comes from a wound on loop. Both feel like truth from the inside. Learning to tell them apart is the work. And underneath that work is something I find genuinely thrilling. I'm not at the mercy of my feelings. I am, in a very real sense, their source. The love I feel, the joy I feel, the aliveness I feel, I am making all of it, which means it belongs to me. It cannot be taken. It goes where I go. We are not receivers. We are creators. An invocation for Metis, Titaness of knowing, of wisdom that lives below the surface of words. You who were swallowed not because you were wrong, but because you were too complete, too sovereign, too sure of what you knew. I call on your intelligence now, the kind that doesn't need to perform certainty because it simply is certain. Help me trust the knowing that moves in me before I have language for it. Help me author my reality with intention and with grace. And help those who find my stillness unsettling to understand I am not absent. I am just already moving. If you are in your own season of transition, sitting with an ending, feeling your energy begin to move in a new direction, trying to hear the difference between signal and echo, I would love to walk alongside you. You can reach me at www.goddessintraining.online. If this landed somewhere real, please like, subscribe, share. New essays and podcast episodes arrive as they emerge, honest and in real time. Thank you for being here.